What up, Dragon Ball fam? It's your boy Eddie saying Hilaire, Team Pro, ex-PPG team captain, coming at you live today with the new segment. We're gonna call this one For the Win, right? So in the For the Win series, I'm gonna start giving you guys, not just myself, but hopefully other teammates will tag along and then jump on this series as well and give you their insights, thoughts, mind, and everything that pretty much goes along with this, right? But today specifically, I want to focus in on the whole, I guess I want to call this guy the Art of War of Dragon Ball, right? First off, I want to apologize if you guys hear background noise. I'm at my grandma's house. You guys know that I'm about to move up there. Your boy's about to go up north, leave Florida. So I wanted to record a video for you guys and make sure I had it to upload today and not skip a beat because we are back in the season. So once again, let's get back on task. The video I want to focus on today for the Win series is going to be the Art of War in Dragon Ball. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The Art of War Dragon Ball, how I break it down is into 3 phases, right? The first phase is theorizing. The second phase is testing. The third phase is training. So, for this segment, I'm going to use myself and my Jiren deck in order to explain this to you guys efficiently. So, in a theorizing phase for Jiren, right? This is last set. The reason why I was able to find so much success with Jiren is because while theorizing it, Hand Destruction and Icarus were pretty much consistent decks that did what they wanted to do no matter who was playing it. Like, yes, there was different lines of play for other people, but those decks are super consistent in what they did. So, off rip, 100%, if your deck could not compete with Icarus, you're not going to be playing it. If your deck auto-loads to Hand Destruction, you will not be playing it. Now, Jiren, in my opinion, had an auto-win against specifically Cell Surge because it doesn't matter what they did, they could not answer the 5-drop. If you put super early aggro, this is all a theorizing phase. Sorry if I didn't announce that. This is theorizing phase. Before I even tested it. The 5-drop had a built-in answer to Hand Destruction because they could not remove it. The only way they could remove it is through battle. They could not charismatic. You just take a life. If you were to use your leader ability to make all my rest cards come in rest mode, it did not matter. Because I had an 8-drop that if it came in rest mode, I get to untap it and still swing at your face for 35k base double strike to the dome, which is completely insane. Against Icarus, I love that matchup. I did not lose a single match to Icarus because the matchup, in my opinion, was free for Jiren. The way it was, if you're going first, you instantly win because Crown was going to win you the game. Crown was super MVP. But Icarus, they had 2 choices. They could leave 2 open. One is for their shenanigans with POS and Repulse. And that second energy was for a Steadfast, just in case I dropped a big threat that was too big. So now how I play around it, if you're going first, you would always be an energy ahead. So you'd repost them. So now they have 1 or 2 options. They would either waste the Steadfast on the Crown, which was, I guess, plus for them, because I don't get to see their hand, but it's not really plus for them. Because during theorizing, I understood that, hey, if they did that, now that 1 energy they still have left is just a kill shot for me. Because, number 1, I can free play a guy at 1-drop and then evolve for no energy cost an evolve target to neg the Steadfast 10k and then go into a 35k pretty much dual attack beater into which is my Zenith. So now, since they only had that 1 energy open because I baited it and they Steadfast it, they have 1 or 2 options. They can either all frick repost me, or they can try to play around it because back then they still had 4 power Super Saiyans. So they can try to play through it. Sorry, my daughter's about to attack me. I can see it. They can try to play through it in order to get their power of Super Saiyan shenanigans on. But now if they did that, they have to understand they now are 100% going to waste a Final Flash and a Super Combo to out combo a 35k double strike, which technically I won that battle, or they're going to just repost me off rip. Now they reposted me off rip. I understood that, hey, all I have to do is just restand it, tap any 1-drop, or tap my leader, and swing again for 35k double strike to the dome. I had so many ways, the Red Jiren deck had so many ways to play around those 2 decks, it was just completely insane. This is all on theory, this is all on paper. Now, let's get out of the theory and move into the next phase, which in this phase, I call it the testing phase. Now, the last two phases, the second and third phase, which is second one is testing, the third one is training. I think a lot of people confuse these two steps. Because in the second step is where you actually take your deck from theory. Once again, theory is where you have to understand the meta. You have to understand the vacuum of the meta. The deck that you're picking or the strategy that you have. Amira, it's okay. The deck that you have. Come here, girl. Come here. The deck that you have or the strategy that you want to play, you have to ensure that it is viable for the meta, right? So, yeah, you understand that, right, baby? So, I understood that in the theory phase. Jiren was a viable deck, but I still have to test it. So now we move on to the testing phase. Testing phase is where you use excellent resources such as webcam battles with your teammates or untap. Untap is the most popular way you can utilize the testing phase. Because the testing phase, all it is you playing your deck. It's no longer you, hey, my deck can do X, Y, and Z. Because if you were to sit there saying, well, if I had this card, I could have done this, your opponent could do the same thing. Well, if I had this card, I could have done this. But you actually putting your deck to the test, hence the testing phase, is where the rubber meets the road. It's where you actually say, okay, cool. It's not just theory anymore that, hey, Jiren will be Icarus. I was doing it. It was no longer, this is what I'm going to do to you. I was showing players this is what I was doing to you. That is the testing phase. Now, why I say it gets confusing really quick is because the next step is the training phase. The testing phase is only complete when you run a gauntlet of games and you understand that your deck has high probability to just beat 100% of the, not 100%, a majority of the meta decks that you will see along with Rogue. Like, once again, the two meta decks I was focusing on was Icarus because that was the most dominant deck at the time, and along with Hand Destruction. Now, other honorable mention decks that were still there that I found out through testing had hard matchup for Jiren was other hyper-aggressive decks. The one deck in particular that gave Jiren problems was Gogeta Zeno. Because Gogeta Zeno has the Peerless Fusion, which warps a card through barrier. Now, for those who understand the Jiren cards, there's a one-drop that gives all my other one-drops barrier. So I didn't care. Do I play around other matches? It was so simple. I'd give all my other one-drops barrier and swing with the only guy who doesn't have barrier, which is usually the 5-drop or the 8-drop. So they can't really react to that. Now, the fact that they had Fearless Fusion, and then you combine that on with a one-drop thwarting, it was giving the deck issues. This is why once I moved away into the Tampa event, I incorporated cards such as Death Balls. Because those Death Balls became insta-kills. Like, once again, it'll allow me to focus my attacks on the leader while still clearing their board without having to worry. Because if they had a thwarting on board, I understood, okay, cool, this is an actual threat. I could literally attack with a 4-drop with my 4-cost Jiren. That one freezes Death Ball is a 25k combo power. So sometimes I can even attack with a 1-drop into the thwarting itself just to make them neg cards from the hand, depending on how I wanted to do it. Or if I just wanted to ignore the thwarting I was on board, it allowed me to be super aggressive to Gogeta Zeno's face to the point where they're now burning their advantage from their hand in order to stay alive, which I think that was the route I chose to go to. Because if you're sitting there trying to answer their thwartings, they're just playing another thwarting next turn, and then their end game is going to be way better than your end game. Because your end game, you want to end it faster. The longer the game prolonged against Gogeta Zeno, the harder it became for you, because you don't have those 1-drop 25k bombs coming to the face that also have board removal. You don't have 30k guys that grab your thwarting or a Peerless Fusion or the 20k to come in and just play for free. You didn't have access to those cards. Now, this is everything that I found and discovered through the testing phase. The testing phase, once again, is complete and only complete when you have absolute mastery of the deck and you understand everything your deck can and cannot do. This is when you finally can leave the testing phase and then go into the training phase. Now, this is where I think a lot of confusion comes from when I talk to players about it. The training phase, in my opinion, is not you no longer testing the decks. It's you taking your proven deck that you theorized for at first, step one. You tested, and so it's battle tested. You know what to do with the deck. Because it works. Because once again, it was theorized. It's no longer just theorized. It's a proven, tested deck. Now you're training with it. Training starts when you go into locals. Training starts when you go into tournaments. Training starts when you're competing with the actual deck, no longer just testing it. You're actually competing for prizes and things like this. Webcam regionals, fest events, Pro Play Tour qualifiers, all the stuff like this. This is the training. Now, the reason why you want to train with the deck, you're like, but Eddie, that's double tapping, but it's not. So I'm going to do my best to elaborate on what training can do for you. Because at first, I did not master this myself, and it took me a while to master this step. Training is where you take your skills and knowledge of the deck, and now you create muscle memory in real life. Training is no longer webcam events, unless all you're playing is webcam events. So you practice. Practice makes perfection. Practice does not make perfect. If you're practicing something wrong, you will master the wrong way to do it. That's why I say practice makes perfection of what you do. So you got to practice your craft. So if you understand, you're going to a fest event, you're going to a Miami event. If you do not have access to other players, yes, you can webcam. Now, I'm going to show you why it's really important to train and not just test on untap and call it a day. Because training, once again, using my example for Jiren, the fact that I skipped that step made my first 2 tournaments almost impossible for me to be successful. Even though I was undefeated in those first 2 tournaments, I had 2 ties in the first one. I finished, I believe, 9th out of top 8. It was for the Bandai Regional. And the next one, I think I got like another 2 ties. I either had 2 ties or was undefeated with 3 ties. It made no sense. But when I sat there and I thought about it, I'm like, it makes perfect sense. The fact that I missed the training step, I tested. I knew the deck worked. But I never, Miles, put it down. I never trained. Now, let me go into depth what training means. Training is me actually having those physical cards in hand. Me testing on untap, using the button to search my deck, look at the top 5, shuffle, took less than 5 seconds. It's right then and there, done. Me doing this in real life took me about a good 15, 20, 30 seconds. And this is rinse and repeat because the entire deck, if you understand how Jiren works, looks at the top 5, searches deck, draws 1, shuffles, takes life, look at the top 7. A lot of things you do, it's not just the click, hey, peek top 7, look at this, automatic shuffle. I have to search my cards. I have to shuffle my deck. I have to present it to my opponent to cut. They cut, then they give it back to me. Then after they give it back to me, I play another 1 drop and I do it again. So now I was losing a bunch of time just shuffling, giving my opponent my deck to cut it and stuff like this. I was not in autopilot because I could not just press buttons. Now, after a while, I trained myself like, hey, I understood this is what was causing those ties. It wasn't just me running out of time. It was me not utilizing this third step, which was training. I needed to create the muscle memory that when I played that 1 drop, it was instant. Hey, I understand this match with Icarus. They can't do anything to stop that 1 drop unless they have Tyrion, a card that they did not play at the time. Unless you're a Frieza's Army card, you could not Cold Bloodlust. So I instantly ripped the top 5 cards on my deck, and I was searching the cards, picked my target. I knew exactly what target I wanted to pick, shuffled it away, gave it to my opponent, told him to cut. The fact that I knew what target I wanted to pick, I already knew my next play was. So if it was already a search target, it was a quick light shuffle, gave it to my opponent, because I already know I'm going to slam another guy down and do another search again. This is Once I understood this, I created the muscle memory. I started giving my opponents my deck so fast, shuffling. The only time that I was losing was my opponents reading my cards because they understand what Jiren did. They just, okay, what are you searching? They were double checking and verifying what I was doing was correct. Now, once I was able to put those 3 phases together, theorizing, testing, and training, that's when I started to have infinite success with Jiren. The first event I took after I mastered that 3rd step, which is training, was the Dallas event. Dallas event, you can ask everyone that I played. Those games were just, it was smooth. It was just plop, plop, plop. There was no ties. We just kept going. I lost in top 8 against the eventual champion. In Tampa, same thing. I lost my very first round, unfortunate for me, which was against Soul Striker, Red Blue Soul Striker. Yeah, Cooler is not the deck to play against if you're Jiren, because Cooler, it just lasted a deck. But it was Soul Striker with a Red Blue Soul Striker. It was rough. He got me. I ended up winning out. Could not play in top cut, unfortunately. Had to go back home. The wife and kids needed me, but finished 8th and switched in that. It was super, super good. You want yogurt, baby? Super, super good. Super, super easy. Came back, next tournament, handed the deck off, showed some of my local players, which is what inspired me to actually create this video, because I was doing my best to explain these 3 steps to them, and they understood the first part. But the second part and the third part was where I found, hey, this is a big step where players confuse testing, because I had certain players that were playing. Once again, I don't judge what deck you're playing at locals. To me, my issue with it was, why are you testing it at locals? For instance, if you want to play set 1 Crit Jeter, right, and you're bringing it to locals, how I should see it is, okay, cool. Let me be a more realistic example. Set 1 Golden Freezer, right? If you're playing this at locals, the way to make yourself and your local players better would be to theorize with the deck, so you had this thought that, hey, these cards and this strategy will work to combat the current meta strategy. You actually tested it before bringing it to a tournament, so you understand it was battle tested and you understand exactly what you need to do. So now the reason why you're sitting at locals with set 1 Golden Frieza is because you need to create the muscle memory. You need to be able to have the endurance to play your 1-drops, to draw a card, to sack it off, to draw, to untap and then draw, to do it in the correct sequence. And you have to do this by creating muscle memory to keep going, to keep going, to keep going. Because it's no longer, I'm online, I'm going to drag the card on board, draw 1, click the instant shuffle. Once you shuffle in real life, you pass it to your opponent, tell them to cut. You're already playing your 1-drop because you're going to draw another card again. This is the muscle memory that you're creating. But where they were confusing what I was saying, and I did not want to come across as mean, but I have to just say, guys, understand, listen to what I'm trying to say, is if you're bringing, in my opinion, if you're bringing a deck to test for locals, once again, this is more, this is not a right, this is not a wrong thing, this is just my personal suggestion, my personal opinion. If you want to better yourself as well as your other local players, don't test at locals. Test before. Come early to locals and test that deck. Come to locals, come to regionals, come to all the higher events where you're competing for actual prizes with battle-tested things. And this, I'm telling you guys, over time will make yourself better and make your local player base better itself. Because it's no longer, I'm testing on locals. It's, hey, did all the homework by myself at home, and now I'm just creating muscle memory in order to compete at events and win events. So, with that being said, once again, this was the first part of the For the Win series. The first one is going to be titled Dragon Ball Art of War. First step, theorizing. Second step, testing. Third step is training. Hope you guys like this. If you guys liked it, leave in the comment section below. Tell me what you guys want to see next. Well, with that being said, see you guys next time.